This has to be one of the most frustratingly inconsistent shows that I can remember. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
I'm going to get right into it because there's a lot that needs to be said and not much time to do it in. When it comes to The Last of Us, I've enjoyed about 50% of the episodes, and the other 50% have felt like a complete waste of time. And a big reason for that is because of episodes like this.
Why do these things always happen to me?
Episodes that it doesn't feel like we have enough time for in a 9-episode series. This week they decided to dedicate an entire episode to a DLC story from the game. And do you know why DLC stories are DLC stories? Because they're extra. You can play through them or not, and it doesn't really impact your experience in the main story either way.
That makes sense.
Sure, it may enhance a character's backstory, but in the show, we could have accomplished what we accomplished in this episode with one line of dialogue from Ellie talking about a night she spent in a mall. Did we really need to dedicate an entire hour to them doing mundane, everyday things when we are supposed to be worried about the apocalypse? I hate to make that Walking Dead comparison again, but this has Beth and Daryl written all over it. We're just going to pretend we're not fighting for our lives every day, so we can go dance around in Halloween masks.
What the hell am I looking at? When does this happen in the movie?
It's just not that interesting to me. Earlier this season, I was intrigued at the process of getting little tidbits of information about what's going on in the rest of the world. But all of those cool little flashbacks and tidbits have stopped now, and I don't understand why, because that's what's going to make this show feel different from the game and justify its existence. What's not going to do that is expanding on things from the game that don't need expanding on, and focusing on things that don't contribute to the bigger story being told.
Don't waste my time!
If you really felt that strongly about showing us this story in this show, you could have at least shown it to us in pieces. Couldn't we alternate back and forth between Ellie and her flashback and Ellie trying to save Joel in the present? And you could create an interesting dynamic between the two stories because she very much doesn't want to lose someone again like she lost someone in the mall. But no, instead they gloss over the situation that everyone cares about, that being Joel's condition, and dedicate the entire runtime of this episode to a misplaced side story.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
And again, like episode 3, I'm not saying that this story shouldn't be told. I'm saying I don't like how and where they are telling it. Because like episode 3, it kills the momentum established in the previous episode, it disrupts the overall pace of the show, and it makes everything we are currently watching feel like filler. It's like the writers don't know how to properly structure a story. I really don't understand it.
I don't get it.
The game always felt very heavy to me, and like dire circumstances are constantly presenting themselves that need to be dealt with. I don't feel that weight in the show, at least not consistently. Even when somebody dies, it doesn't feel as significant. I came across this article from Vox that pretty much sums up everything perfectly. And it says the best way to experience The Last of Us is still by playing the game. In this article, they talk about, quote, how the game's special trick is that it doesn't need to convince you of their relationship because it gives you custody over it.
Damn right, that's the only way I work, Cap.
And I don't think I've ever read anything more accurate in my life. For 7 episodes now, this show has been trying to convince me that this is the same relationship from the game, or that this is the same Ellie from the game, neither of which are proving to be true, because I'm just not buying into that on a week-to-week basis.
No, don't like that.
And it's frustrating because we've seen this story play out in the game and done much better. As it turns out, the raw emotion you get from actually experiencing this story and interacting with these characters in real time cannot be translated. It's not the same experience when you just watch everything play out on your TV screen. So much so that I'm convinced now that trying to replicate this story in a TV series format might not have been the best approach.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Because at this point, it feels like you're trying to reinvent the wheel. Was this episode so horribly bad that I couldn't watch it? No. But was it boring and pointless and taking us further away from the story we actually care about? Yes, and it feels like they've yet to find that balance. between adding to or expanding what we already know about the story, with what we tuned in for being fans of the game in the first place. I don't know about anybody else, but even the action sequences feel few and far between. It feels like we go weeks without even encountering an infected person. Yet we have time to show two relationships that hold no overall significance, and ultimately end with 3 out of the 4 people in those relationships dying. And don't get me started on the Kansas City Raider leader chick, who we spent episodes building to, only to kill her off in the most unsatisfying way possible. More wasted time.
Stop it!
I don't care what anybody says, this is not enhancing this story, it's actually detracting from it. And that's a shame because it's a great story that deserves to be reinterpreted and properly adapted for a new audience to see. But right now, it feels like TV audiences aren't getting the full effect, and it feels like this show can't get out of its own way.
Y'all be cool. Right on.